Hello Marvel Heroes fans, my name is Wilfred and welcome to my channel. If you found this guide useful, do check out the link at the description of the video. There are more guides for you to watch from my website. Now, I met up with my friend Straight Dude from my supergroup for lunch today, and he requested for me to do a video on the Infinity system. I was hesitating at first because without the Omega gear, without the Omega difficulties, it's rather hard to be sure what nodes are useful. But he said that even as an old-timer, he find it a little bit confusing what nodes to really go for and so on. So I'm happy to help him out, and I hope that it will be useful to you as well. And also, before making this video, I was talking to my friend Prime Fury, who asked me if I could just give some guidance from a leveling perspective, how this Infinity system may help. So happy to help out as well on the aspect. And many of you have asked me questions along the way from the biggest update ever till now. Now, this is patch 2.03, so whatever here is according to what we have today. As and when the Infinity system get changed, I'll make another refresh again on this video. Alright, so now, for those who has been away for quite some time, the old Omega system is gone. Whatever Omega points you have divided by 10, round up, is what you have as Infinity points. Infinity system works somewhat like the Diablo 3 paragon system in a way that every point you earn will contribute to one category. You can't decide which category to go, it goes by rotation in this manner. Alright. So now, some of you I'm aware that maybe new to this game come from Diablo 3, wondering what are the main differences between the Diablo 3 paragon system and Infinity system. From my experience, there are two very distinct differences. So these are the two of them. Number one, in Diablo 3 paragon system, every time you earn a paragon point, you feel excited and you are able to assign the point into the system and make your character more stronger. So it kind of motivates you from one point to another point because you can feel, you can see progress in that sense. Infinity system wise, it doesn't work the same way. Every point you earn may or may not have action. In fact, most likely, if you are at the high end of the Infinity system, like over 1,000 points, next point comes is really hard and take a long time for it to come. So some of the nodes will require 1 point to advance, some of the nodes require 4 points, and some of the nodes require 25 points. So in a way, unless you can track which are the categories that require another extra 1 point or 4 point or 25 point, and you can track all your balances, it is almost impossible to action on every point that you earn. So what likely to happen is that you would store the Infinity points until a point whereby a couple of weeks or a couple of months later, revisit again and put a point in. Good and bad, because in a sense, if you make a decision, then you don't need to think too hard. You can just play the game, a couple of months later, come back to it. Now, why do I say that? Because imagine if you are a durability and speed hero as an archetype, I'll talk a little bit about that later, then only these two germs, the attribute, matter to you. So you may need to wait for 25 point, 25 point, 25 point, 25 point, and 25 point, which is 125 points later, to put 1 point into the attribute here, right? So in a sense, how long does it take to earn 125 points? Well, as of now, it's slow. Unless you purchase the XP booster, or you earn those XP booster in game, or you play a lot of hours to it. So some of us will not be able to action on any point earned until like a couple of weeks or a couple of months later. So just saying that. The second distinct difference is that in the Diablo 3 system, every node is a good node. Every decision is a good decision. Just that there are some nodes that are better, some decisions that are better. But there's no irrelevancy inside. In the Infinity system though, there are actually quite a number of nodes that are just irrelevant to your heroes. They're there, but you just have to ignore those. And in this video, I'm going to show you what are the nodes that you can ignore, depending on your hero as well, and which are the nodes that you must have, depending on, regardless of what heroes you have, you must have those nodes. And which are the nice to have, under what circumstances do you require to pick certain nodes. So this is what the whole video is about. But before I get there, a quick recap. How do you find out the archetype of a hero is by the trait here. So move the mouse over the first icon here. You'll see that for Deadpool, for example, is a durability or fighting hero. So whether you put a point in durability or the word is or fighting, you get 4% to it. And do read up the description of the attribute as well. It works different from before, and it's not as useful as before unless you match the archetype. So immediately, what it means is that 4 of the germs here, the attribute is irrelevant to your hero unless you got so many points that you don't need to worry about where are the points because you get everything. But until you get there, then only 2 points are relevant to you. Another 4 of them is you can automatically strike them. Now let's look into each of the category and see what are the notes that you should be picking and under what scenario should you be picking. Now the mind germ is all about the intelligence. If you are the intelligence hero, your priority would be putting all the points here, with the exception that if you are unable to keep up with your basic lust spiel, meaning that your hero is unable to have the resource to sustain the rotation you have, even after the gear that you have, even after the catalyst that return you 100 spirit every time you use a med kit. If you are unable to sustain your rotation, you may want to consider putting points here. Now, how many points you put in here depending on your hero and your build. I would not recommend putting more than necessary. In fact, I would like you to put a bit less than what is required when you do a dummy, because with a dummy you stand still, but in reality you move around, and during the moving around part you regenerate spirit as well, because you either not doing any power, or as you move around your med kit start to come off the cooldown and give you another 100 spirit from that perspective. So do this one only if you cannot sustain basic build, regardless of what archetype you are. Intelligence will go here, no need to think about that. If you are not an intelligent hero and you are not, you do not require a reduction in spirit cost, then you may consider, does your hero benefit from a bigger pool of resource? For example, that pool. If I put in 100 awesome here, I will gain more health and base damage. Like right now it's 34. Then if I now it becomes 37, right? So if that's the case, then you may want to consider putting into here to translate the note into DPS. All right. So now, if you are not intelligence hero, you do not require any cost reduction. You cannot benefit from the resource pool size. Then the next one you like to think about is the Mind Over Matter, which gives you the health regen, because health regen is always useful regardless of what heroes you play. So that is my recommendation to you. Ignore this note. I don't think this is useful. I mean, how often do you need to watch over your pet's health? Some pet, even if a pet dies, you can resummon again. So I would not put in points in this note. That's just for my preference. All right. So now next stop, let's talk about the strength note. Strength note is quite interesting because if you are a strength hero, your priority is to maximize your strength notes here. This will be your priority. If you are not a strength hero, then what can you do? There are a couple of things you can do. If you are a summoner, then summon ally damage is your bread and butter. In fact, if you are a strength summoner, which I can't recall any heroes like that, maybe future, there may be. So if you have a trade-off between the two, I still recommend you to maximize this one before moving into the strength. Usually, that's how the game works. But the summoner reward is coming up, so I can't say too much right now. But if you are not a strength hero, then you should dump everything here until you get 10% less damage versus all attacks. This is a very, very good note because it makes you indomitable. It makes you a lot stronger in a harder content. So I'll put all here. But what about the rest? So here's what I'd like to talk about. Do you require ultimate power cooldown? You may, in the event whereby you want to do raid, and the raid and rage window may have a 10-minute. You may want to pop the ultimate in the beginning and pop the ultimate at the end, towards the end. So a power cooldown reduction for ultimate will then give you that kind of like luxury if you require to pop 2 ultimate within a 10 minutes window. So it depends on whether your heroes has the ultimate token or not, because ultimate token can be earned through events. You don't need to put points to it as well. But however, if your hero is required to reduce the ultimate cooldown so you can pop more during raid, this could be one option. How about the signature power buff? Now, this will give you a maximum of 100% signature power. Now, what does that mean? 100 base damage. What it really means is this. From my experience, main spender is about 40% of the entire rotation output, because you have animation and so on. And the rest of it is evenly distributed with the rest of the layers. So signature layer likely to be 10% of your overall rotation, taking into consideration of the cooldown of signature. Granted, signature has a nice burst, but nowadays the game is getting slower, so burst damage may or may not matter too much anyway. So if you invest all the points here, it will give you 100% to signature power, or effectively 10% to your overall kind of output. Is it really worth it? From my experience, if you look at other nodes, you'll get more than 10%. So I would not look into this node as of now. Things may change, but as of now, I don't. So to recap, if you're a strength hero, pick this one. If you're a summoner, pick this one. And otherwise, you pick this one, and you'll be very happy. All right. Now let's look into the energy node, the reality gem. It's very easy to talk about this node. It does not matter what archetype you are. All heroes, from my experience and from my prediction, anticipation, should pick crit chance. Why? Well, the game has changed such a way that there are more room to grow in the crit and brutal side of it. There are a lot of artifact today, a lot of gear today that buff the flat damage. In a way, crit become a luxury. Everyone wants to have high crit and high damage, high brutal, because the big number come from there. In order to open up all the brutal and crit, you must open up the crit chance window. So, like for example, my Deadpool, if you look at, I'm still gearing him. I don't have any good gear right now. But if you look at him just as of now, you can say that, well, his physical crit is 41%, his brutal is only about 30%. So you're talking about a true brutal of 12%. So only 12% of time he brutal. And only out of which 40% of the time he crit. So another 5% is very welcoming. It does not matter what archetype you are. So as I always say, this design is a little bit odd because it kind of penalizes the energy, and you will see later, fighting hero, because with that, you don't really have a choice. While other heroes that are non-fighting, non-energy, will have a choice of, we have an option to pick up 4% crit, 5% brutal, and then 12 kind of like attribute points from 2 other gems, if you have about 1000 infinity point, versus an energy and fighting hero that can only pick 4% crit chance and 5% brutal, and that's it, right? So something to take note of, something to think about here. But in the event whereby you finish off all these crit chance, what are you going to do? I mean, crit chance, by the way, will benefit the summoner as of today as well. Well, I mean, crit damage is good as well, because crit damage is also quite a luxury. So I would even think that for all heroes, you may want to, from the crit chance, if you manage to get all of them, then you may want to consider moving to this one instead of this one. And besides, if you require a lot more points to fill up the energy, you may as well do whatever points into your crit damage anyway. As for the rest, I don't really want to talk a little bit about that, because I think this is just the one to go for. Same as for the soul gem, also very nice to talk about. Fighting, again, 5% brutal, that's it. Now, if you are fighting heroes, the remaining points, you may want to dump it here. But then, like I said, I mean, depends on how many points you have. But otherwise, is brutal damage good? Well, looking at my Deadpool, I have maybe right now 12%, 15% of true brutal window. What is the 1% brutal damage anyway? It's not going to make or break a lot of difference here. It's insignificant, or however percent of it that you may have. So I would not think too hard onto the 75% brutal damage. In fact, I may even consider, with all the remaining points, dump it into health, because more health is better. But it's really up to you. If you are fighting heroes, then you will dump it here. If you are not fighting heroes, if you think the health is not an issue, yeah, sure, you can put it into the brutal damage. All right. So now let's move faster into the space gem. Space gem is the durability. For the durability heroes. Now, but what if your durability hero is area hero as well? because some hero, well, Angela can't be the one because they have just nerfed that, destroyed the area build. But say if your hero is an area hero and a durability hero, so which one should you be maxing across? Well, if you put 6 durability, you have 24% increase in the damage that you have, 24%. But if you put into the area, you have 56%. So it does tell you that if you are full area for a strength, even for a strength hero, then you should consider this node. The more area damage you have, the more you should do this node as well. And if you are leveling as well, I mean, for myself, when I level, I usually go a lot of area power because it's nice to clear off a lot of things faster as well. So I would say, I mean, area is really nice to have regardless of what archetype you are. All right. So that's one node that you probably want to consider. But if you are not a full area build, then you have to apply the mathematics I've said before. 40% is on main spender, the rest of it is layer, then depending on how many layer area or not. So it's 60% of it. So, say your main spender is not an area, the rest of it area, so you have 60% out of this 56%. Is it still worth it against the 24%? That would be the mathematics you need to think through to see whether you want to put in here or put in there in case you are a durability hero. Now, what about the rest of it? Say the total defense rating. Now, total defense rating is rather interesting because if you are high defense hero, Deadpool is not really a good example. He's more a dodge. But say if you look at Deadpool, his defense. Ooh, hang on a second. His defense is over here, which is about. All right. So his defense is about 4,000 odd. So if I have a total defense of say 75%, which is just quite substantial. Now his damage reduction before the 8% melee kicks in is the 39%. Once you kick this one in, you have 43%. So you add up to another 4%. 4% is not insignificant. So do you want to do this one or do that one? It really up to you because like for my Deadpool, I don't think its survivability is an issue. But if you find that your hero is very weak, fragile because of the power, whatnot, the design of the hero, and if you are high defense, if you have a high defense, or your defense translates to DPS, then you may want to slap in the total defense rating. Only if, all right. Now, what about the rest of it? Dodge chance and deflect chance. So this is a very hard discussion right now because this is not a dodge rating, it's a dodge chance. So dodge rating sometimes will benefit some heroes, DPS wise, and also dodge rating will contribute into the whole defense damage reduction. It is not the case, and even if you put things here, you can't really see any end result here, so you can't really gauge of it. So it is purely by chance. Do you want to? Is 6% dodge chance a lot? Well, it is rather, it's rather quite a fair bit, but I would not be usually my gearing strategy is not to gear for chance because sometimes it's the spike that kills a hero. But if you are finding yourself in a situation whereby you are not a defense hero and you find that you are even in trash mob, you can't even own up to it and you keep dying to it, and you are not a strength durability hero, then I would say between the dodge and deflect, I would definitely pick the dodge because dodge evade all damage. I would definitely pick it. Consider the fact that it's the same as 4 point here and there. I mean, that's really no brainer, at least for me, because dodge, even when you deflect, you take half the damage. So what's the point, right? So you take this one over that one. All right, so I hope that gives you some idea of what to pick on this one. This is a little bit complex, so I spent some time on it. The time jump is the one that deal with the speed. So if you are a speed hero, no brainer, you pick all the point here to buff your attribute. If you are not a speed hero, there are a couple of things quite interesting. Some may want to go for attack speed because you may want a 25% attack speed. So what does that mean, 25% attack speed? Say my not so minigun is, what is my attack speed? 11.2. All right, so I accept, right? So become 12.8. There's a diminishing return as well, I believe. So you have to do a math in just a bit, but you have to ask yourself one thing: how often can you stand still and do attack speed? Because you realize that none of this actually benefit from the attack speed itself. If it is so, it'll tell you so. Some of the power, you have to move the mouse over and see which power will give you the attack speed buff. So go back to the mathematics behind. Main spender is 40%, say assumption, 40% of the entire rotation power damage output. Then with that buff a certain percentage, you have to work out math how many of them. Is it really worth it? So usually it's rather good. But what are the other options out there? Now, the other options out there, a couple of them. If you are a movement hero, then if you have all the movement power here, then it is something also worth considering for the movement hero, because it may actually do better than your speed attribute as well. Same as the other one I talk about, the other one is the durability versus the area as well. I think this one, durability versus area. Same argument you have on the speed versus the movement power. So do the thinking behind it. How many of your power really movement, not just like, for example, if I look at that pool, I can switch to my movement build here. All right. So even this one here, okay, so this one is movement, this one is not, this one is not, this one is not, this one is movement. So out of my whole toolkit, I only have 2 so-called movements. So, is it worth it to put above my movement power? It may not be so. But if your hero has a lot of movement tech, then yeah, that may win your own speed attribute. All right. Say if you are not a real movement kind of guy and you are not into speed, you don't really care about attack speed because you worked out the maths, or you look at the number and it's like, well, it doesn't really help me on my main spender anyway, because I've been kiting around in reality, unlike versus dummy. What other thing can you consider? Move speed is always good, because I found that even if I can have a lower cooldown on the dash and teleport, I may not be utilizing all the dash all the time anyway, because it's very situational. I tend to hoard the cooldown, the power a little bit. But if your play style needs you to kite a lot, because I'm not, I just reposition myself, avoid some of the damage if I can. But if you always find yourself being hindered by the cooldown of the dash and you kind of hated the whole thing, one option for you to reduce the cooldown of this one, it can reduce up to, I think, maybe certain kind of percent. All right, so 30%. So if you want to reduce the cooldown of it, then you could as well, give you more chance to jump around. But but if you have learned the play style is just reposition through walking, then I would say move speed is good. And also for leveling as well, I think move speed is also quite relevant. But I may want to also say one thing is that it is quite different from the Diablo 3 kind of scenario, because in Diablo 3 it's no brainer. Move speed is good stuff because everything is just walk. Here, there's something called traveling power. Now, he has a charge of power, and then, and you find yourself doing a lot of traveling power anyway. So whether you move or not move doesn't really matter too much. So think about that. You may have an answer for it. Some people swear by it during the boss fight. If they can reposition themselves through haste, this kind of move around, they find it a lot easier to survive. So again, back to the play style. Back to a play style, all right? So whichever play style that you pick, you have, then we'll pick the one. So this one requires you to be rather stationary. This one requires to kite a lot, and this one requires to reposition better. So these are some of the thinking point behind it. So I hope you find this video useful, and with that, it's the end of the whole infinity system. And I welcome all comments and all feedback as well. And I hope you guys enjoy this system. At least now you have better insight. Whether you agree with me fully or not, I understand, because everybody have different kind of play style. This game changes a lot. You may work out the math and find that some looks are actually better than the other, which is good as well. But it's to share at least some initial finding insight for you to help you through this game. All right, see you next time. Goodbye.